Hey folks, welcome to the Wealth Transfer with TC. Today I'm going to talk about cash and cash being part of your physical portfolio. A lot of times we talk often on here, and a lot of the other wealth transfer YouTubers talking about having some gold and silver on hand. So I'm going to touch on that and a few other things dealing with laws within the United States as far as pulling out cash, and just so everybody's aware that every country is different as far as its banking laws. Right? So you might have different restrictions in your country than you do here in the United States. You might have more leeway or you might be more stricter, right? And we are already seeing governments starting to clamp down on cash payments and trying to go to these digital payment system and eventually into the central bank digital coins, right? That's eventually what they want, and get rid of all cash. But the cash that you're going to be holding in your portfolio is going to have to deal with emergency, right? Just kind of like we prep our storehouse full of food and water and other things. And we're doing the same thing with cash, just like we do with gold and silver. Because there might be a time when, you go to your grocery store and everybody can only pay with cash. And depending on where you live, you don't know how bad things are going to get. We can't just think of this as the wealth transfer is just for Americans, and we got to have that United States mentality. There are people all over the world that are involved in the wealth transfer, and all their laws are different. So you need to research your laws because when the wealth transfer begins to happen, you don't want the government to seize your bank account, for one, because they're in debt and they're having issues, and they start siphoning people's bank accounts to pay off their debts, right? You don't want to be in a situation like that or be part of a bank that is going to freeze your funds and steal your funds or take your funds, right? So you need to make sure that the banks that you are banking with are strong banks, and that going to be less risk with who you bank with, right? But at the same time, this is why we got to think about cash. So one of the things that over the summer, I got a lot of questions about cash, and should we start pulling cash out? And I've been saying over the past couple months that we need to start looking at, thinking about it, what you want to do as far as having cash on hand. And in your physical portfolio, you might have bonds, you might have gold and silver, even in your hard wallet, and wherever you keep your cash, you want to make sure that it's safe. And we'll get into that. But we could be placed in a situation like they did in China, right, where people went to the banks, were going to some banks, and they were trying to get their money out, and they actually had to call the military to prevent the people from, basically attacking the banks, because these people are wanting to get their money out, and there's desperate people right now sitting outside their banks, hoping to get their money out. Okay, so there's a lot of desperate people right now, and we have seen economies basically shut down, right? Like Sri Lanka, that was one of the first major countries that collapsed since the beginning of the year. So a lot of those people, if they were not prepared, if they had never heard about storing up for a storehouse or anything like that, a lot of people became desperate and are desperate now. And they're rationing food and gas and all types of stuff. And if that starts to happen here in the United States and in the country that you live in, then you know that there's going to be that possibility you might have to use physical currency. And in some countries, you might even keep multiple currencies, depending on where you're at. Maybe in the Middle East, you might be holding on to several different types of currency. If you're in South America, you might be holding on to several different currencies. Now, one of the things that I'm thinking is that I know that this wealth transfer is not something that's going to happen overnight. I know that the wealth transfer is going to happen over a period of number of years. And that's the way I look at it. And things aren't moving as fast as, maybe a lot of people think they would. We talk about the crypto wealth transfer with Bitcoin, right? And seeing it going to zero at least 2 or maybe 3 times, or maybe even more, right? But that's not something that's going to happen within a month, right? I believe that this is going to happen over a period of years. And same with the global currency reset, right? We know Iraq is the first country, but countries will be changing their value over a period of time. It's not going to be where all these countries suddenly get in line and they start changing the value of their currencies. So I know that this is going to take place over a period of time. So that's what I'm thinking as far as cash-wise. Now, before I get into this, folks, remember, some of you live in other countries, so you guys need to do your own research on cash withdrawals, how much you can withdraw without having to fill out any types of forms or anything else. We saw what happened with Israel, and they were in this article here, restrictions on cash payments in Israel prompt shift to digital payments. See, they want to go to the central bank digital coin system, okay? And that's the whole purpose. They're going to try to eliminate cash, right? And this also prevents people from, massive bank runs too as well, right? When that time comes. So you're going to start to see more and more countries all around the world restrict cash. And they've been doing it. Some countries have been doing it for some time, but this is just recent. And don't be surprised if it happens in the United States if they feel like people are going to be making bank runs, because the number one reason why you're doing this cash thing now, you don't want to be one of those in line trying to take out cash out of your bank, right? You'll already be ahead of the game because you've been planning it. You've been taking out some slowly here and there, up to the point to where you have enough to get through some really rough times if for some reason you need to make cash to make payments or buy food or whatever the case. All right, so before I get started, remember this has to deal with the United States, right? This is the IRS. You can take out as much money as you want. Now, if you're a multimillionaire and you want to take out $1 million, you can do that. There's not a problem with that. But there is a law that requires a person to report cash transactions of more than $10,000 by filing an IRS form 8300. A report of cash payments over $10,000 received in a trade or business. If you decided that you wanted to have $10,000 in your physical portfolio here in the United States, then, okay, do you want to avoid having to fill out that form and avoid having to be basically reported to the IRS that you're taking out this money? And so that's something that you may want to think about. Right? And everybody has different privacy issues. If you're already wealthy now, say if you're a millionaire and you want to pull out $100,000 in cash to have in your portfolio, that's not something that you could probably do over a period of several months. That would probably take a long time to build up that much cash. So you might as well I would just go ahead and fill out the form. So this is the 8300, and so. Like I said, the links to these articles that I'm discussing will be down below in the description, right? Just so you get an idea that what you're going to have to do if you pull out $10,000 or more within a 24-hour period. And this is the reporting cash payments, right? A person must file the 8300 if they receive cash of more than $10,000 from the same payer or agent in one lump sum, in 2 or more related payments within 24 hours. For an example, a 24-hour period is 11 a.m. Tuesday to 11 a.m. Wednesday. As part of a single transaction or 2 or more related transactions within 12 months. Right? And this last one mainly deals with, I believe, businesses. Basically, every 24 hours, you can pull out $5,000 without it being reported to the IRS. Right? But I'm going to present this other article to you that's going to go with that 8300. It's called "What's the Best Way to Withdraw a Large Amount of Money?" Right? So if you're wanting $10,000 or more in your physical portfolio, then you might want to think about how you actually want to pull that money out. Note that while the 10,000 is a figure specifically cited by the BSA, this is not one single magic number that forces banks to file a report with the government. For one thing, this restriction applies to all withdrawals from a bank in a single day. So for an example, you cannot avoid this limit by taking $5,000 out of one branch of your bank and then another $5,000 from a different branch or an ATM. More broadly, the BSA requires banks to report any suspicious activity, so making a withdrawal of $9,999 might raise some red flags as being clearly designed to duck under the $10,000 threshold. So might a series of cash withdrawals over consecutive days that exceed $10,000 in total. So just because you go tomorrow and take out $5,000 and then 2-3 days later you take out another $5,000, they can still report you. And it's not like you would be in trouble or anything like that. But the IRS might send you that 83 form in the mail. So one of the things they do with this is they look for patterns and stuff like that. And all you're trying to do is just pull out cash. Now, if you're a multimillionaire, I mean, it's just best just to take the money out and, you know, fill out the forms and everything and to basically be done with it. If you're somebody who are a lot more concerned about your privacy, then you can deal with that in the way that you see best for you. And also in the article, they said that here the bank should be able to handle the BSA reporting requirements efficiently. So let's say if you go in there and they're almost kind of, you know, they're halfway clueless about having to fill out this paperwork and they don't seem to know what they're doing, then that might be, you might want to choose a different bank to work with. I'm thinking like, okay, probably $10,000 to start off with is a pretty good point. I don't want to pull it out all at once. So with it being the end of August, we're going into September, maybe I need to start pulling out funds to reach my goal, you know, over the next 2 to 3 months. Now, this is just money that you just put like in a, you know, fireproof safe that you might have your gold and silver in, or even your hard wallets, right? And your other fiat, like the dinar and Vietnamese dong, maybe where you keep like a lot of your physical assets. So some of the other things I thought about, and I'm thinking this in the long term. So even now, up to this point, I know that when the first seeds come through, as far as these wealth transfers, I'm moving into a different place, right? And I'm thinking about, you know, like right now, like, okay, a fireproof safe where you keep your gold, your silver, your bonds, maybe even your hard wallets, and, you know, maybe you have 2 different areas or 2 different safes that you deal with that, you know, maybe, you know, to keep your physical assets. When that time does come, there are different ways, like you can keep stuff hidden in your house, right? Hidden drawers in the house. And there's all types of videos of how you can keep, you know, your fireproof safe or whatever method that you're using to hide your physical portfolio, right? Because even if somebody breaks into your house, you don't want them to discover your cash or your safe, right? Where they could just take it and, you know, eventually later on break into it with the right tools. So that's one of the things you want to look at is, you know, hidden drawers within your house. If anybody ever breaks in, they'll never find where you keep your physical portfolio, right? So there's all kind of ideas you can get from looking at that stuff. So, and that's one of the main things. Like I said, you know, there is prophecies out there about taking your cash out. You can see here, prophetic dream, urgent warning, take your cash out of the bank, move your money now, right? Even Sir Lewis has one that he did a couple months ago. Get your money out of the banks now. Here we go, economic ninja, right? Get your money out of the banks. That was 8 months ago. Jordan Peterson, 6 months ago. I allegedly, a month ago. You know, Johnny Bravo, he's always talking about pulling your money out of the bank. Here's another lady, other people just talking about taking their money out of the bank. So I just wanted to present that to you guys, and so that you guys have an idea of, you know, physically dealing with cash, because you might need it, right? This is the cash that you have is basically for emergency. You know, you got to remember, at least here in the United States, you know, each bank account is only covered up to $250,000. So you got to think about that also too as well in your overall scheme of things of how much you're going to keep, you know, all this wealth that's coming through, you know, and how you're going to keep it in your banks, you know, what type of accounts and so forth. So there is a lot there. But with that, you most definitely want to make sure that you have physical cash in your portfolio. And I just want just some of the pitfalls that you may come across dealing with maybe the IRS or dealing with your bank. That's why it's good to have a good relationship with your bank and the people that work there. And, you know, not just to jump into things too as well. You know, if I know that I'm going to pull out $10,000 over the next couple months, you know, I'm just not going to go in there and do 5 $2,000 withdrawals, right? I'm going to make it different. One day I'm going to do $1,500. Maybe another day I do $3,100, and then maybe I do another day, you know, $2,200, you know, $2,250, and I'm not going to make it exactly to where, you know, where it's going to send up red flags, just because it's my money, right? But you're just trying to keep things more private. You know, it's a shame that if you're a multimillionaire and you want to pull out $1 million worth of cash, that you may have to go through all this stuff, right? So And since I know a lot of people in the wealth transfer are a lot more private, right, concerning what they do as far as the government, that's one of the reasons why I made this video. Once we start getting into the millions of dollars, things are going to change. And there's going to be all types of decisions that you're going to have to make. You're going to have to move money around. You might decide at one time you do want $1 million in cash, right? So most definitely you're going to be wanting to have some pretty good ideas on how to hide, your cash portfolio. And of course, most definitely I'd be hiding it in more than one, it'd be multiple places. That's just like, I'm not going to keep, I know for sure I'm going to have multiple hard wallets when it comes to crypto. So if I have, X amount of, whatever, I might just divide it between 2 or 3 hard wallets, when that time comes. Okay, folks, so I just wanted to bring this whole thing with your cash being part of your physical portfolio that you're going to have within your home or wherever you store your physical portfolio. And because, we may need this at some point in time, depending on how, bad things could get. And just not here in the United States, but for anybody who's listening anywhere in the world. So I thank you guys for listening. God bless. TC out.